Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Harvard Alumni for Global Women's Empowerment Fireside Chat Series. Thank you all for joining us from around the world. It's so wonderful to see all of you here with us today. Kindly note we are recording this event for our social media platforms. My name is Leah Keene, and I'm the president of Harvard Global We. Harvard Global We is a shared interest group, or SIG, of the Harvard Alumni Association, and we are excited that we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. Please check our webpage for information about how you can join our commemorative events and celebrate with us. And please, so the link should be in the chat for you guys to check out. All right. So we are dedicated to the empowerment of women through education, dialogue, and connection among individuals who are working for women's rights and freedoms worldwide. We highlight and raise awareness about issues concerning women's empowerment all over the world, including but not limited to education, political rights, freedom from violence, women's health, and economic empowerment. Our board of directors is as global as our interests, with representatives there in the US, in Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. I invite any board members present to type in their title in the chat or in your identification to your photo. And then everybody please type in your name and where you're joining us from today in the chat. Today, our Connect team is proud to hold its 6th event in an exciting program series that features senior leaders of organizations serving women and girls from around the world. If this is your first Global We event, welcome. And for attendees who have joined us before, welcome back. We are very excited to have everyone here. We value your engagement and continued support. We are a registered 501c3 organization in the United States, and any donations will be tax deductible. Donations can be made by clicking on the Donate tab at our website at harvardglobalwe.org, where you can donate using a credit card, PayPal Giving, or Zelle, or find the information on how to donate to us by check. Let's take a quick moment to take a screenshot. So please turn your cameras on if you are comfortable having your picture shared via our social media. So, everybody good? People are still turning on their cameras. We'd love to see your faces and not just your name. So please do turn on just briefly. Okay, you good? Oh, somebody else is joining. All right, I'm gonna one more screenshot or two. All right. Okay, now it's my pleasure to move us along to introduce our Global We board member, Anna Butusova, who is going to introduce our speaker and moderator. Please join me in welcoming Anna.
Thank you, Leah. Hello, everyone. I'm the chair of the Connect initiative, and if it's your first event with us, welcome. Our initiatives promote separation organizations leading the way globally for women's empowerment in the vast majority of areas like arts, social services, education, health, economic development, entrepreneurship. Today, we are thrilled to have our speaker with us. She is Mavic Cabrera-Balleza, founder and chief executive officer of the global network of women Peacebuilders. So first, she's going to deliver remarks for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to have a moderated Q&A session. And Annika Gray has joined us today to moderate it. She's our Connect team volunteer, and there will be opportunity for all of you to ask questions. You can put them in the chat or raise your hand and we will simply call on you. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion featuring the global network of women Peacebuilders. And we also hope that you become the member or a friend of Global We to receive our newsletter. Our membership is free, but we are currently raising donations for our upcoming Women Empowerment Expo, which will happen in April 2024. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker. She is the founder and the executive officer of the Global Network of Women Peacebuilders. She's one of the 2 civil society initiators of the Women's Peace and Humanitarian Fund, and one of the founding members of its global fundraising board. She's also a board member of the Generation Equality Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action, and the Beijing 25+ Civil Society Coalition of Women, Peace and Security and Youth, Peace and Security. She's the author and has facilitated multiple workshops and discussions on women, peace and security resolutions in many countries, including Afghanistan, Japan, DRC, Colombia, Philippines, Serbia, Sierra Leone, South Sudan, Uganda, and Ukraine. Now the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Anna, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I also signed on my laptop finally. So let me just have 30 seconds to switch from my cell phone to my laptop.
No problem. Do that.
And I will try to share my screen. Hold on. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Apologies for the technical glitches.
No,
Yeah,
that's
good.
okay. We are so glad that you're here with us that we'll take it.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm so happy to join you this afternoon. And congratulations to the Harvard alumni for Global Women's Empowerment on its 10th anniversary. My name, as already introduced by Anna, is Mavic Cabrera-Balleza, and I'm joining you here from New York, but originally I'm from the Philippines. Just give me a second here.
Well, I'm originally Russian and I used to live in Italy for 8 years, and now I'm California. And our moderator, she's now currently in Jamaica. So previously we were talking how she has fan on because it's hot. And so definitely our board and our global way members come from all over the world. And usually we have great discussions after this fireside chat. So I'm very excited. And Leah is writing in the chat. Leah is our president. And she's writing that she's originally from the Philippines and currently
wonderful.
calling in from a Chicago suburb.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, we have I
We're
think
global citizens.
yeah, that's one of the I think benefits of having a conversation like this where we can all join and share our perspectives.
Okay,
And
can
I
you
see
see?
you I see you are sharing your slides
Okay,
right now, and we can see it perfectly. So thank
all
you.
right. So you have the slide. Who is the Global Network of Women
Yes, that's what we're
Peacebuilders?
seeing. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I hope that's all of the technical glitches that we'll have today. All right. So we're a coalition of women's rights organizations and other women-led civil society groups from around the world, about 120 countries. And we are actively implementing programs and projects in about 30 of them, meaning we are, actually in country, working with our staff, working with our members and partners, and in implementing these projects. So we work in mostly war and crisis affected countries in Asia and the Pacific, countries like Afghanistan, Nepal, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea, in Eastern Europe, in Moldova, Ukraine, And we've also done some work in Bosnia and Serbia, and in South Caucasus, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and in Central Asia. And then in Africa, we're very active in Africa, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Uganda, and many more. And then in Latin America, largely in Colombia, but we've also done some work in Guatemala. And then in the Middle East and North Africa region, we have implemented projects in Iraq. We're very active in Lebanon, and we also work with groups in Palestine and Israel. So, but our office is based in New York, right in front of the UN Secretariat building, because it's the main target of our advocacy, particularly the Security Council. All right, so we have 6 strategies, and pardon me, some of these are a lot of UNists. I know many of you are also engaged with the UN, so you're familiar with this language, but I will break it down later. So we work on the what we refer to as full cycle implementation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on women, peace, and security, youth, peace, and security, and sustaining peace. And by that, I mean beginning from advocacy, explaining, training, and persuading member states of the United Nations to implement these international laws. And particularly the resolutions on women, peace, and security, and youth, peace, and security are international laws under the UN Charter, because they have been officially adopted by the Security Council. And one of the challenges here is in implementation. Well, by the way, I should mention that there's no shortage of international laws and policies and instruments. The shortage is in the implementation. So that's what we focus on. We monitor, we train, we research, and a number of times we also raise funds for these resolutions to be implemented. Otherwise, they will just be papers gathering dust in the shelves of the bureaucracy, the UN bureaucracy and the government bureaucracies. We also, oh, sorry, what did I do? Yeah, okay. We also elevate and promote diverse, actually not also, this is one of our principal mission. We elevate and promote diverse women and young women as leaders, influencers, and peace builders. In the context of war or conflicts and humanitarian emergencies, there is this predominant thinking that women are mere victims, helpless refugees, or internally displaced waiting for help. But the reality is women, yes, women are victims, but they are not passive victims. They take actions, they mobilize their communities, they negotiate with rebel groups, they lead humanitarian response. And it's just in the DNA of women and youth peace builders to step up when there is a conflict and a crisis. And we've seen this many, many times during COVID, during the war in Ukraine, during the conflicts in Colombia, and displacement in the Philippines, natural disasters, and so on and so forth. You'd see women taking action. Third strategy we have here, feminist and localized action across the humanitarian development and peace nexus. What does it mean? Well, one, we recognize the work of big international humanitarian organizations, but research after research have been proven that localized humanitarian response is more efficient, it's faster, and it's also meeting the actual needs of the local community. So imagine a woman humanitarian worker or peace builder in her community. She would know who is needing medical services in the context of war. She would know who needs psychosocial services. She would know who doesn't have enough water to drink. So if we direct resources and support to those local humanitarian workers and peace builders, the the humanitarian assistance will go very fast and in a very targeted manner to those who are in need. And many of these are led by local women. Another strategy we have is on research. We believe we will make a better case for the work of women and youth peace builders and humanitarian workers if we have evidence. For example, we advocate for women's participation in peace negotiations. And our research, as well as those of others, have proven that peace negotiations are more likely to be concluded and concluded with a clear peace agreement signed and implemented more effectively if women are participating in peace negotiations at all levels, formal and informal. And that is backed by research. And then we also strengthen allyship and partnership, ensuring accountability of power holders. What does this mean? We engage with men. That's one. We engage with men and boys in the community for them to realize that while they are part of the problem, given our patriarchal system, most of the perpetrators of sexual and gender-based violence are men. Therefore, that's just one of the many areas where men, play a negative role. But what we emphasize is there are still men, we believe, when enlightened, would be able to take responsibility and accountability to be part of the solution, to ending violence against women, to promoting women's leadership and participation in decision-making. And then there are other sectors too, like the media, the private sector, and of course, equally important, male political leaders. And then organizational strengthening. While we work to support women leaders and peace builders and influencers in local communities affected by war and crisis, we also need to take care of our own team. We invest in skills development. We invest in care. We ensure that there's psychosocial support when needed. And we continuously do that as part of our organizational strengthening. I just wanted to cite a few numbers here, summarizing some of our accomplishments in quantitative terms last year. So we reached over 2 million people through our media activities, including social media, including media competitions. We have localized Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security, and the supporting resolutions in more than 30 countries. And by that, we mean taking these international laws literally out of New York, bringing them to local communities that would benefit from them. So for example, what does Resolution 1325 mean in a farming community in northern Uganda? What does Resolution 1325 mean to a fishing village in the Philippines? How does it impact their work? How will it make a difference in their lives, particularly lives of women and girls? So we work with mayors, counselors, indigenous leaders, school teachers, local police, and of course, at the center of all of those are grassroots women's organizations and youth groups. We've supported just last year 4 countries in developing their national action plans on women, peace, and security. 1 country, which is Democratic Republic of Congo, in developing and adopting its youth peace and security action plans. And we've supported 65 municipalities, districts, and cities to develop and implement their local action plans or local laws on women, peace, and security. We are actively providing humanitarian support in Afghanistan, Bangladesh, South Sudan, and Ukraine. Hold on. Okay. All right. These are just, some photos of our work in some of this country. So in Bangladesh, the focus of our work is in the Rohingya refugee camps, but working with the Rohingya refugees as well as the host communities. And some of you might know already that the Rohingya refugee camps in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, are the biggest. I mean, together, there's several camps, but in one district, Cox's Bazar, is the biggest concentration of refugees in the world. Over 1 million Rohingya refugees in a small district. So there, like one picture, we distributed, we gave a wheelchair to an elderly Rohingya. And here on the upper right hand, I would like to draw your attention to this picture. Many of the Rohingya women and girls, only when they left Myanmar, only had 3rd grade of education. And they barely are able to identify the alphabets and definitely are not able to read and write. But so we trained on the lower left hand, we trained these young women from the host communities who have high school education, a few years of college, some of them. We trained them to be teachers in basic literacy and numeracy. And then they are the ones who are teaching the Rohingya and Rohingya to read and write and count. And we call the literacy and numeracy education training technique or pedagogy infusion method. It's not just teaching A is for apple, B is for basket, but representing ideas and concepts on peace building. So we infuse peace building in literacy education because they are in Bangladesh due to the conflict in Myanmar. And when they go back to Myanmar, how even as outside the country, as refugees, how can they participate in peace building in their home country and also in Bangladesh, because there are tensions, particularly between the refugees and host communities. And sadly, sometimes some of those tensions are fueled by interested political actors, or the political actors who would, benefit from a divisive approach to local communities. In Colombia, our work is focused on, sorry for the wrong spelling there, focused on supporting the peace agreement. And Colombia has had a war with different rebel groups for over 50 years. And in 2016, they signed a peace agreement with the biggest rebel groups, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. But the problem, we we advocate for peace negotiations, particularly women's participation in peace negotiations for reasons that I've already cited earlier. But the challenge with peace negotiations is that most peace agreements that have been signed are not effectively implemented, if at all. Some of them have been violated even before, literally, the ink that was used to sign the peace agreement has dried. So it's a lot of work to come to a peace agreement, but it's a bigger work to implement that. And so we work with local women's organizations. We train them. We facilitate interactions between them and the government and or the warring parties to work together and implement the peace agreement. So that's the focus of our work in Colombia. And then in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we work with women and young women, also training them in literacy education, working with them and the government to develop national action plans. And I apologize, I don't have a picture here or pictures, but one of our focus is on economic empowerment. As we know, poverty, lack of economic opportunities is one of the root causes of conflict. And for women, it is both a political issue and a personal issue. The moment, so let me just take a step back. Women are stuck in many abusive relationships, intimate relationships, because they are dependent on men for economically dependent on men, because it's mostly only the men who earn a living. And the moment that the woman earns an income, her status changes, beginning from her family. The husband looks at her differently. The children looks at her differently with a lot more respect. And she also feels personally secured. And if time comes that, the relationship is not working, the husband is being abusive, she has an option. She doesn't have to stick to that relationship. That's why we are, we are investing quite a lot of energy and some resources in economic empowerment in the Congo and other countries. And then in Ukraine, we've been working in Ukraine since 2017, supporting the development of a national action plan on women, peace, and security, working with the media in generating support for women peacebuilders. But like many others, we pivoted when the invasion took place, and we're supporting women-led humanitarian response and cybersecurity training. And here you see some pictures, distribution of on the bottom, on the left, lower left hand, that's a kit, medical kit. That's a first aid kit. And on the upper left, they are distributing the, our partners are distributing the medical kit. And then on the upper right hand, that's a picture from our training on cybersecurity. And on the lower right hand, that's a picture of the art therapy class with children. And I should say that less than 2 weeks after the war started, we were already, our support was already on the ground. We were providing this humanitarian support. No. And then another work that is important for us is partnership with the media. The groundbreaking importance of the Security Council resolutions on women, peace, and security is that it shifted the public perception from women as passive victims to peace builders, decision makers, and leaders. But sadly, when you look at the media coverage, especially mainstream media, women are still portrayed mainly as victims, and very few are aware of the heroic work that women are doing to negotiate with the warring parties, to respond to humanitarian emergencies, to lead peace negotiations, because it's not covered in the media. So we work a lot with media organizations, media outlets, individual journalists, and media practitioners in the countries where we implement our programs. Oh, okay, there's one more there. Oh, yeah, there's our, I forgot that there are more slides here. Yeah, those are pictures from our various media initiatives. And then one of our uniqueness as an organization, hey, what is that? One of our uniqueness as an organization is we cut across all levels of policy advocacy, policy making, and decision making at all levels, beginning from global, regional, national, and local, and back. And at the global level, we have led the establishment and now the implementation of two key infrastructure in global implementation of women, peace, and security, and youth peace and security agenda. The first one is the Compact, which is a mechanism to security and humanitarian action. And then we also led the establishment of the Women's Peace and Humanitarian Fund, which is so far the only multi-donor fund that is dedicated to funding grassroots women's organizations and other women-led civil society groups. And then we also established the co-established the Civil Society Working Group on Youth, Peace, and Security that coordinates all of the work of civil society and regularly interact with the UN and other policymakers among member states. I will stop here and happy to answer questions and react to comments. Thank you. Over to you.
Wow, this is such an amazing presentation. It's so exciting and challenging at the same time to learn about your efforts in Colombia, Bangladesh, Democratic Republic of Congo. These are huge countries, so I'm really excited for our Q&A. And then in Ukraine, because the conflict is going on right now, and also the working group that you mentioned. I have so many questions, and I'm sure our Global We Connect team member Annika Gray, who will moderate a question and answer session with you today, has a lot of questions as well. Annika Gray is the Director of Gender Equity Initiative at Northwestern School of Law. And Annika, the floor is yours. Please take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna. And thank you so much, Mavic, for joining us today. And of course, for that very thought-provoking presentation. Now, to jump into the questions, your leadership in bringing the perspectives of women to global policymaking and peacemaking is extremely admirable. So when thinking about your current work, what are some of GNWP's current initiatives that are closest to your heart?
It is the basic organizing of diverse women's organizations, including particularly Young Women Plus, Peacebuilders Leadership Network. By the way, the plus it's only present in some countries. It's a decision of the members, but the plus represent the LGBTQIA community, and it's the young women who proposed that to have the plus, and they have members from those communities, and to see how they are transformed. Let me go back to the example of Bangladesh and Democratic Republic of Congo. In Cox's Bazar, there are many international organizations. As I said, it's the biggest refugee camp in the world. And with all due respect, I respect them so much. UN High Commission on Refugees, all other UN entities, Save the Children, CARE, Red Cross, Oxfam, and many others, hundreds and hundreds, are there with big staff. Many are expats, and a few are from the capital, Dhaka, particularly those who speak English. But when we started working there, we were looking for grassroots organizations from Cox's Bazar that are, organic, that are from Cox's Bazar. You can count them with the fingers of your one hand. They barely exist. So we said, okay, this is great. This is life-saving work, what all of these are doing, but is it empowering? It remains a question. When their projects are finished, after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they leave, and nothing is left in local communities. So we started with basic organizing of women from the Rohingya camp and the host communities. Literally, when we first met them, they barely opened their mouth. And quite a number of them, they were being married off by their parents. Bangladesh is number 9th in terms of early child and forced marriage. Girls aged 10, 12, 15 are married off to men 40, 50, 60, 70 years old because of economic reasons. And 3 years later, they are leading the work of the Young Women Leaders for Peace. They are participating in national and global conferences on youth, peace, and security. They are implementing economic empowerment projects in the Rohingya camp and outside. And one of them was even named I think it was in 2021, one of BBC's 100 women leaders. That to me is the most inspiring, and it happened in several other countries we work in, like the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Philippines.
So kudos to your organization for centering the grassroots organization, because it is from the grassroots that you actually get the sort of impact that's going to make changes in the communities that are affected. So kudos to your organization for that. So my next question relates to deep-seated cultural beliefs that impede women's leadership in conflict prevention, peace building, and humanitarian action. How does your organization go about shifting belief systems in order to promote the participation of women while also respecting the local culture?
Yes. I mentioned already the work in the media that is so helpful, especially national and local media. We haven't directed our energies yet to global media outlets, talking about CNN or Al Jazeera, but we're starting really from local to national, because that's where the cultural aspects are captured more accurately. It's what we've realized in this work is that it's one thing to work on policies. And that's who we are as policy advocates. We influence the law, the international laws and instruments that adopted by the UN, adopted by the EU, the AU, etc. But even if you have, let's say, a very powerful law or treaty like CEDAW, Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, you cannot just hand it to local authorities or distribute it. Here, read this or read it. Let's read it together and expect change. So we work with the media, as I said, we work with cultural leaders, including religious leaders. Let me cite a very concrete example. We were in Liberia preparing for the localization of Resolution 1325, and the men were early, as usual, because the men were early to come to the workshop, because they don't prepare breakfast, they don't prepare the children to go to school, so they were early, chatting, drinking tea, whatever. The women always come later after doing all of the chores at home. Anyway, so they were chatting, and what were they chatting about? They were chatting about a rape case a couple of nights before, and some of them were commenting, "Oh, she had it coming. Why was she there in the middle of the night? Why was she wearing that very short skirt? Why was she, where are the parents of that girl?" So it's blame the victim syndrome, never putting the accountability on the perpetrator. So these are the people that we're hoping would work with us in implementing this resolutions, wherein the principal pillar is women participation in leadership. How can the women become leaders when men are thinking this way? So in the workshop, fast forward, the workshop went on, and there was there were I think 2 or 3 religious leaders who participated in the workshop. And during lunch, I and my other colleagues chatted with them and asked them, "What's your interest in this?" And they said, "Oh, we want to know how we can support with our congregation, or how our church can support." And so we realized. So I asked, "Pastor, how often do you hold service?" And he said, "Regularly, at least twice during weekend, sometimes 2 each day, morning and afternoon." "And how many attend?" "Oh," he said, "anywhere from 100 to 150, sometimes 200. It's a small church." And I realized he does that every week with a captive audience. And if he would send a message that sexual and gender-based violence is not permissible in any situation, and it's never the fault of the woman, or be it another, there are also a few boys or men who are victimized in some context. So we work with these cultural leaders, these religious leaders who have a lot of influence and in their communities. And in Sierra Leone, the paramount chiefs, which are the tribal leaders, are organized, and we work with them to campaign against female genital mutilation, to campaign against or to encourage the election of women as paramount chiefs. And we were also able to work with them to start a women's economic empowerment project. So yeah, that's how we try to shift the cultural beliefs and traditions that are harmful to women, that violate international laws on women's rights.
Okay, so thank you very much for sharing those interesting stories about your engagement with norm-setting institutions like the church and tribal leaders in going about changing the sort of deep-seated norms that actually perpetuate or influence gender-based violence and other gender inequities. So thinking about the history of the organization, what are some of GNWP's biggest successes over the years?
I think the localization strategy is one of our biggest success. When we started this in 2010 and 11, it was only us. We're talking about localization. And when we are in meetings in New York and panel discussions, and I talk about our work in local communities, with grassroots organizations, I felt like I was talking Greek to a largely English-speaking audience. But now, almost everyone is talking about localization, not just on women, peace, and security, but on the Sustainable Development Goals, on the Summit for the Future, on the output from the Humanitarian Summit. Everyone is talking about, we need to take this out of New York, out of Geneva, and bring them to the local communities. Because if not, they will not make a difference. We're just talking to, to our own, within our own echo chambers.
Okay, great. So that's a very, you're absolutely right that we sort of moved towards this position where we're beginning to understand how important it is to engage with and center the communities that are actually affected when we're trying to devise strategies related to improving women's condition.
But I also want to add one more point, Annika, if I may. It's not just, ensuring that they know, that they implement. So it's a bottom-up approach, meaning whatever successes we have in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, in Colombia, it has to be elevated from the local to the national to the regional and global level. Otherwise, the little, the success stories will just be, isolated success stories that will not generate a greater impact. Instead of bottom up, they will remain bottom. So we are now working in country with governments to implement localization across the country. And to begin with, it's their work. We don't want to take the responsibility away from them. We are only catalyzing a process. So the local should influence all of the higher levels. Thank you.
Absolutely. So thinking about current world events, and in particular, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, is there anything that your organization has done or can do to address the needs in the region?
Yes, we've been working in that region since, I think, 2016, particularly Palestine and Israel, and but also in Iraq and Libya and Lebanon, as I mentioned. It's interesting because we work with organizations that work on both sides. And it's interesting, it's beyond interesting, actually. It's inspiring for them to transcend the politics, the violence on both sides is just incredibly inspiring. So I think, like most organizations, in the beginning, we prepared a very balanced statement that violence is happening on both sides. And we really need to condemn Hamas's attack on Israel. But we also need to recognize that there's a history of occupation here. We should not lose track of that. And we should also know that there are hostages. There are still a few, I think, in Gaza, but there are Palestinians hundreds, if not thousands of them incarcerated in Israel, in Israel. So, but the violence that is affecting civilians in Gaza, particularly women and children, is just, it's beyond disturbing. So we're mobilizing, we're planning to organize closed door meetings with the women Peacebuilders and member states. And as you know, within the UN, it's also a very divided picture that we see. So we're organizing closed door meetings, beginning with those who are calling for the protection of civilians and in respect for humanitarian laws and human rights. And we're talking to donors to to move faster and get resources again to local communities, not through big intermediaries. That's what we are doing.
So I have a follow-up question. So you mentioned that you are engaging women Peacebuilders, but how do you identify those Peacebuilders, one, and how do you plan to provide them support for their underground work?
I'm chuckling because I was going to say this will age me, but I've been working since I started this work early, and I've been in this work for more than 30 years. So a lot of the networks I knew from my my work around the Beijing conference. And I think the word, in addition to that, word of mouth gets spreads that we are an organization that focuses on empowering and making visible the work of local women Peacebuilders. So it's also the effectiveness of women's networking and solidarity building that we're able to identify them and they're able to identify us. So how do we get the resources? We send to them directly. So we, through all means of fund transfer. I mean, if you're talking about humanitarian support. And we also know those who have background in humanitarian work, and those who do not, we link them to those who can support them, who has most proximity to them. For example, we're not only working with civil society, we collaborate a lot with UN agencies and entities like UN Women or UNFPA or UNICEF. Just for them to provide technical support.
Okay, great. So I want to shift the conversation a bit to a question related to you and your experience. So you have a long, accomplished career in peace building. So is there any advice that you would give to other women looking to pursue a career in your field?
Yes. I know a lot of young people, especially after college or even, while they're still in the completion of their undergrad or master's degree, are interested, but they don't know exactly which specific field. And the women, peace and security field sounds very focused, but there are so many sub-thematic areas within it. Peace negotiations, security sector reform, disarmament and demobilization and reintegration, and so on and so forth. I would suggest that they should apply for internship. I have a very strong belief in hands-on internship. I'm saying hands-on because some internship, relegate them to administrative tasks, and we're probably one of the few who give, involve them in the actual work. Like we travel them, we take them with us when we travel to different countries. We assign them specific research projects. We ask them to first assist in conducting training until they conduct the training themselves. So if they can find organizations like that, it would be great. And they should try working with civil society, working with the UN, working with governments, and get all of those perspectives. I mean, interning, and then decide early. And also for women, women like me, or I said, even if, those, for example, born in the United States, try to connect to your origin. Let's say you're an American with from Latin American descent. Try to understand your region more, or the specific country where your parents are, and see what are the angles of peace and security there. Because there's a certain amount of inspiration and expertise that comes to understanding the socio-political context if you have a personal connection to that country. So, and in this work, in global policy and implementation work, there are two levels of expertise that are being looked at. One is what I refer to as paper expertise, meaning you have a degree, you have a graduate degree, and the other is, actual in-country or regional connection and experience.
Yes. So thank you so much, Mavic, not only for sharing the remarkable work that your organization is doing, but also for imparting your wisdom to all those women who are looking or probably hoping to follow in your footsteps. So now we will take some questions from the audience. Please put your questions in the chat.
Anika, I don't have time to. We actually addressed them well. I just checked the chat for the questions that people were submitting throughout the event, and I think we addressed them well. And I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we will close in a couple of minutes, and then to keep the conversation going, let's just organize more fireside chats. Let's bring in more organizations, more local partners, so that we can promote the work they do, because that's the best, like Mavic was saying, that's the best way to get involved and learn the story. And this is very much in line with what we do. So I want to thank our speaker, Mavic, that was amazing. Anika, you're a great moderator. We're lucky to have you. And I'd like to remind everybody what Mavic was saying, that the best way is to follow the work of the local organizations, get an internship, get out there, volunteer, sign up to newsletter. And not to brag, we have a great newsletter, and we are planning many events in 2024. So we're probably gonna have just since we're approaching December, we're only gonna have like a social next month, and then more events in 2024. So look out for our annual roundtable and expo in April 2024. We have movie club. We also organize discussion circles related to current world events. And our expo is dedicated to bringing every year about 20 organizations that are working in the local communities. So that could be a great opportunity to be involved. And I'd like also to remind you that at the end of the year, we're going to be fundraising for this event. So please consider celebrating our 10th anniversary with a donation to help us to keep bringing this kind of programming. We're all volunteers. And Harvard Global We also has additional opportunities for you to share our mission, including being a volunteer. We have some openings on our website. And as a reminder, if you're not a member or a friend of Global We but would like to join us, please visit our website or click on the link in the chat that I posted to register and receive our newsletter. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, and have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you are.
Thank
I'm
you,
just-
everyone. Thank you, Anna, Annika, and Leah. And yeah,
Thank you,
let's stay
Mavic.
in touch. And I will suggest other organizations
Can
that
we
you can
please
invite.
have,
That's
I
great.
would,
Yes, Mavic. That would be
would-
amazing. We're just trying to select our organizations for upcoming year. So
I'd like to invite Mavic and the Global We personnel to stay on just to
yeah,
recap for a few
definitely can
minutes,
do it.
please.
And
But
everybody
thank you,
else,
everybody.
see you hopefully at the social or other events. And then thank you for joining us today.